roof is going! You'll die in there! 3 more. 1, 2, 3.
Montana, 1888. A man was about to run into a burning barn for a family that had told him to stay away. To understand why, you have to go back 2 years, to the winter that broke an entire territory. They called it the Big Die-Up. In 1886, the cold hit 40 below and refused to let go for weeks. Cattle froze standing in open fields. Ranchers who had built herds for decades watched them vanish in a single season. When spring came, the range looked like a battlefield. Bill Harlan lost everything that winter. 20 years of work, gone. He walked off his 240 acres in February of 1887 and never came back. The bank dropped the price twice, and still nobody wanted the place. 2 buyers rode out just to look. Neither got off his horse. Cole Harding got off his horse. He stood alone in that broken field and looked at what the Big Die-Up left behind. Fence down in 3 places, barn roof caved in, fields gone wild after 6 years of silence. Any sane man would have turned around. Cole felt something he hadn't felt in 32 hard years. He felt certain. 11 years he'd saved for this, riding other men's cattle through Wyoming, Idaho, and the Montana Territory, sleeping in cold bunkhouses, spending nothing he didn't have to. $420, every coin earned the hard way. The bank took every cent and left him $10 and 240 acres that nobody else wanted. He was still working out where to start when he heard hoofbeats. A young woman on a fine horse rode straight through his gate like she owned the place. Her name was Abigail Whitmore, 22, sharp blue eyes that made up their mind before her mouth opened. "Mr. Harding," she said, "my father is Edward Whitmore. He sent me here with $700 to make sure you climb back on your horse and keep riding." Cole didn't stop driving his fence post. "Tell your father to keep his money," he said. "This land cost me 11 years of calluses. 3 days and a check don't buy that." "You've seen what the Big Die-Up left here," she said. Not cruel, just honest. "I know exactly what it will take," he said. "And it isn't your father's $700. She rode off. Cole thought, that won't be the last time I see her. He was right. 3 days later, she came back alone. No offer this time. "You're doing that wrong," she said, watching him work. "Glidden wire pulls different than smooth wire. That post needs to lean 2 degrees into the tension, or it'll walk over by spring. The soil in this valley changed after '86. "You know fencing," he said. "I grew up on a ranch too," she said. She tied off her horse and fixed the post herself. It seated perfect. "Show me where you need the next one," she said. She kept coming back, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Cole began noticing the days she wasn't there. She was good at the work, and she never once made it easy for him to be proud instead of right. When he drove a post crooked, she said so. When he planted his oats, she warned him the drainage was too fast, that he'd lose the crop to frost unless he switched to a shorter season variety. He listened. He replanted. One April evening, sitting on the fence rail, she asked him, "Why this land? There were easier places." "Because nobody else wanted it," he said. "Land that nobody wants still needs someone to believe in it." She went quiet. "My father's land has never needed anyone," she said. "It's always been wanted. That's a different thing than being cared for." Neither of them noticed the Whitmore ranch hand watching from the ridge, and he wasn't paid to keep secrets. Edward Whitmore rode in that Thursday, 60 years old, the kind of man who'd been the most powerful presence in every room for 30 years. He looked over the repaired fence, then looked at Cole. "My daughter has been helping you," he said. "She corrected my post angle," Cole said. She was right. Something hardened in Whitmore's face. My daughter was raised for more than this, he said. It isn't your character. It's what you don't have. I'll say this once. She is not for you. With respect, Cole said. I believe that's her decision. Whitmore rode off without looking back. That night, Whitmore told Abigail the visits were finished. She didn't argue, not with him, not directly, that never worked. Instead, she found him later in his study. I am 22 years old, she said. I have done everything you've ever asked. I am asking now, not for your approval, for your trust that I know my own mind. She left before he could answer, and he sat alone a long while, unable to work. Before we go further, if Aftermath Tales has been keeping you company today, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. Subscribe if you're new, because Cole Harding is about to wake up to the smell of smoke. June came, and Cole never stopped working. He cleared the main field, planted oats, ran 4 cattle in the south pasture where the grass was finally coming back. Abigail kept coming, kept correcting him, kept teaching him the valley she'd known since childhood. He patched his caved roof with salvaged scrap rather than spend money he didn't have. That won't survive winter, she said. It'll hold until I can do it properly, he said. She understood then. His pride wasn't the kind that refused to admit fault. It just needed a moment to accept being wrong, then moved forward. Neither of them noticed the ridge was empty now, the foreman already back at the Whitmore house delivering a full report. The fire broke out in Whitmore's east barn on a Wednesday night in July, a lantern knocked over in the dark. Cole smelled smoke before he saw the glow on the horizon, and he was saddled and riding north in 4 minutes flat. By the time he reached the ranch, the east barn was already lost. But 20 feet away stood the breeding barn, holding 11 horses, Whitmore's finest bloodlines, and the wind was blowing the fire straight at it. The doors were latched. Inside, the horses were screaming. Nobody was moving toward that barn. Cole rode to the foreman. The horses, he said. Roof's about to go, the foreman said. I'm not sending men in under that. Cole got off his horse, soaked his bandana, and pulled the latch. You'll die in there, the foreman said. How many horses? 11. Cole went in. The smoke was a living thing. He moved by sound, found the first stall by touch, talked the panicked stallion down with nothing but tone, and let it out. He went back. Stall by stall, trip by trip, he lost count. A beam groaned overhead, deciding its own timeline, and his knees buckled. The horse he was leading pulled him back to his feet by pure momentum. Outside, he sat down hard in the dirt. 3 horses were still inside. The foreman stepped in front of him. The roof is going. 3 more, Cole said, and walked past him. When he cleared the door the last time, the roof came down 12 seconds behind him. He sat in the dirt, eyes streaming, and heard Edward Whitmore counting horses. 11. Then he felt a hand close around his arm, pulling him to his feet, and neither man said a word. The smoke damaged his lungs, nothing permanent, but for weeks, hard labor was impossible. His oats were ready. His fence stood solid. But haying season needed hands he no longer had. 2 days later, 2 of Whitmore's ranch hands appeared at his gate, unannounced, and started cutting his oats. Cole almost told them he didn't need the help. 11 years of doing everything alone sat right on his tongue. Instead, he thought of Abigail correcting his fence post, of the 4 days he'd driven posts wrong before he let her help. Thank you, he said. and went inside to sit with a feeling harder than any fence post he'd ever driven. 10 days after the fire, Whitmore walked the property himself, testing the fence post Abigail had first corrected. Solid, 2 degrees, exactly right. "I built this ranch out of $30 and a bedroll," Whitmore said. "I told myself I didn't want Abigail starting from nothing the way I did. I think I confused protecting her with deciding for her." He looked at Cole. "You went back into that barn 3 times for horses belonging to a man who told you to stay away from his daughter. I can't argue with that. I'm not giving you my blessing today. I'm telling you I'm no longer your enemy. There's a difference." He rode north. They married that September at the Cedar Creek Church. Her father wasn't there when the church filled, and she'd told herself for 3 weeks she was ready for that. Then the back door opened, and there he stood in his good coat. "You look like your mother," he said, his voice unsteady. "I've been watching that man build something since March. A man who runs into a burning barn for his enemy's horses isn't doing it to be seen. It's simply who he is." He offered his arm. "My daughter is not walking to that altar alone." She took it. They walked the aisle together, and Whitmore looked at Cole the way a man looks when he's made a decision and intends to keep it. They stayed on Cole's 240 acres, not the Whitmore ranch, because it was his, and because the easy path was never the same as the right one. Whitmore sent 20 Morgan cattle that October with a note that simply read, "For the south pasture. The grass is good there." The herd grew slow and steady, 20 becoming 48 within 3 years. Whitmore came for Sunday supper from that November on, and one evening in the second year he stopped at that same south fence, tested the post, nodded once, and rode home without a word. "He'll never actually say it," Abigail said. "I know," Cole answered. "He doesn't have to." Cole Harding spent 11 years saving $420 and put every cent into land that the big die-up had ruined and nobody else wanted. That certainty is the whole story. A man who saw what broken land could become and had the patience to bring it back the right way instead of the easy way. A woman who rode out to buy him off and stayed to fix his fence instead. A father who built 5,000 acres and forgot, somewhere along the way, that a life is made of character, not acreage, until a burning barn reminded him. What a person does when nothing is owed and nobody is watching, that's the only honest measure of who they really are. If this story found you at the right moment today, that's exactly what Aftermath Tales is here for. Hit like, subscribe if you're new, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Until the next story, keep riding. This has been Aftermath Tales.